Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome back to another evening of story time. It is that time of the week. It's a happy Tuesday. I know. It's only Tuesday, everyone. Doesn't it feel like it's so much more than that because of the holiday season? Or is it just me? But it is Tuesday. It is story time. And it is time for us to finish the read of the new equation by Sibosiso Sambo. We have done our last couple of sessions taking a read of this book. And of course, all of the previous chapters are available on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/at Sir Arminius. If you have missed out on them, they're there for your listening pleasure. In this book, we explore the author's views on ways to be able to make sure that Africa and South Africa and become, I don't know if I want to say more relevant, but become more in tune with the AI revolution and youth culture and youth movements and women's movements and all of those things to help keep Africa and South Africa more specifically in line with what the author sees as being the needs for the future. Now, as a reminder that this book is independently published, it is a nonfiction book. The author's opinions are their own and may not correspond to my own opinions. But my job here isn't to weigh in on the contents of the book. My job here is to provide a forum for this author to be able to get their ideas out there, get their story out there for people to listen to and hopefully be able to engage with. You can, of course, pick up this book on Amazon. It is available out there for you to purchase. The cover looks just like that. There we go. Like that. The New Equation by Sibosiso Sambo. So if it is something that you are interested in learning more about, take a listen to, on the YouTube channel. Check out the book itself. That may be a better way to delve into some of these topics and be able to read something, go do your own research, all of that fun stuff, and get your own thoughts in relation to some of this as we go forward. Always a good piece of advice when you're reading a nonfiction book is to understand that the thoughts and opinions of the author may not be your own. Hopefully, they are thought provoking for you, and you are able to use them to generate your own thoughts and opinions. But tonight, we're going to finish this out, and then we'll go forward from there. So glad you guys are all here with me tonight. If you have any questions as we go through, as always, please feel free to use the chat, engage with each other, engage with me. I will be happy to chat with you guys about any of this stuff as long as it is in between chapters because of course I record this, and because I record this I don't engage while we are chatting because, well, that wouldn't work so well, would it? So everyone, Grab yourself a blanket, a cup of tea, such as my own right here. Let me take a sip before we get started. My teacup that says, "You are the luckiest dad in the world. I would love to have me as a daughter." And so grab your drink, grab a blanket, get yourself comfortable, and let's dive in and finish out The New Equation by Sibo Sambo. Starting with Chapter 15, Constitutional and Legal Framework for a Custodianship Republic. A transformation as profound as expropriating land and strategic sectors to the custodianship of the state must be anchored in law. Without a robust, just, and people driven legal framework, custodianship risks becoming either authoritarian or symbolic. This chapter outlines how we reform the Constitution, laws, and institutions to legally enshrine the new paradigm of custodianship, ensuring it is accountable, democratic, and irreversible. 1. Amending the Constitution from ownership to stewardship. The foundation of a custodianship republic must be laid in the Constitution itself. Proposed constitutional amendments. Section 25, Property Clause, must be rewritten to abolish private ownership of land, water, and strategic resources, replacing it with state custodianship in the public interest. Define land, minerals, energy, data, and water as inalienable commons. Introduce a right to access land and resources, governed by public benefit, not market forces. Guarantee ecological protection and generational justice as fundamental constitutional principles. 2. A Custodianship Act, the legal backbone. Draft and pass a Custodianship Act to operationalize state custodianship in all strategic sectors. Key provisions include definition of strategic assets and custodianship principles, non-transferable, use-based, community first. Establishment of people's resource councils to govern allocation, monitoring, and strict anti-corruption clauses, transparency protocols, and community oversight systems. Emergency provisions for transition, including land audits, expropriation processes, and tenure reform. 3. Establishing the People's Resource Authority, PRA. Create a People's Resource Authority as an independent public body to administer and oversee all custodianship operations. Mandates. Conduct a national land and resource audit. Process applications for use rights, prioritizing community needs, co-ops, and ecologically sustainable projects. Monitor environmental and social impact of allocated resources. Enforce use it or lose it policies to prevent hoarding or misuse. Governance structure. Appointed by Parliament with community, scientific, legal, and indigenous representation. Subject to public scrutiny and quarterly national performance reporting. 4. Reforming land and resource law. Land tenure, mining licenses, water rights, and business permits must be rewritten to align with custodianship. Key reforms. All land is leased, not sold, with lease terms tied to social benefit and ecological care. Mining and exploration licenses require proof of community benefit, ecological safety, and local consent. Water access must be equitable, non-commercial, and managed through local water councils. All foreign companies operating in strategic sectors must operate under custodianship license, with capped profits and community partnership models. 5. Judicial reform and legal access. Without access to justice, rights become theoretical. Under a custodianship republic, establish custodianship legal clinics across all provinces to help people navigate the new system. Train a new generation of people's lawyers skilled in environmental law, community rights, and cooperative economics. Reform the judiciary to reflect transformative constitutionalism, prioritizing public interest law over track land and resource disputes using indigenous mediation systems combined with constitutional law. 6. Protecting the public from capture to prevent new forms of elite control over public resources. Ban political leaders from personally benefiting from resource allocations or custodianship programs. Enforce lifetime transparency declarations for officials managing strategic resources. Implement blockchain based tracking systems for land resource allocations to ensure full transparency. Enshrine in law that no future parliament may privatize custodianship assets without a national referendum. 7. Transitional justice for historical land theft. True justice demands acknowledging and repairing past dispossession. Legal actions. Establish a National Land Truth Commission to document theft, forced removals, and trauma. Offer symbolic restitution, memorials, museums, cultural rights, as well as practical justice, land access, development funds, education grants. Recognize the historic rights of indigenous and dispossessed communities, including land use traditions and sacred sites. 8. Aligning with international law. State custodianship must stand up to international scrutiny. Strategies. Draft a People's Declaration on Resource Sovereignty, aligning custodianship with global justice movements. Work with progressive governments and international law experts to defend custodianship at international courts and trade tribunals. Withdraw from trade treaties and investment agreements that undermine national control over resources. Conclusion of Chapter 15. The law is a living language of power. If written for the people, it becomes a shield. If written for the elite, it becomes a weapon. In a custodianship republic, we must speak the law in the name of justice, peace, and the future. Let the Constitution not protect property, but protect life. Let the law not defend ownership, but defend stewardship. Chapter 15 in the books. Excuse me. And here we go. Chapter 16. Education and Consciousness, Rebuilding the Mind of the Nation. The transformation toward a custodianship republic is not only a political and economic revolution, it is, above all, an intellectual and spiritual awakening. If the land is to be reclaimed, the mind must be liberated first. In this chapter, we focus on the education system, not merely as a tool of training, but as an engine for cultural rebirth, critical thinking, civic power, and self reliance. 1. Deconstructing the colonial curriculum. South Africa's education system remains deeply influenced by Eurocentric knowledge systems that alienate learners from their land, culture, and purpose. Transformations required. Rewrite school syllabi from foundation phase to tertiary level to center African history, indigenous knowledge, and global decolonial thought. Shift from rote learning to project based, critical thinking, and problem solving methodologies. Replace outdated economics and political science modules with custodianship, cooperative models, and ecological economics. Introduce land literacy, food production, environmental stewardship, and community law as core subjects. 2. A new pedagogy for a new society. We must not only change the content of education, but the purpose and method. Principles of the new pedagogy. Education as liberation, not obedience. Teachers as facilitators of critical inquiry, not gatekeepers of facts. Learning as community rooted, combining classroom knowledge with real life practice. Ubuntu education, education that teaches interconnectedness, responsibility, dignity, and compassion. 3. Mass political and economic literacy campaign. In times of transition, the greatest threat is confusion. A new economy and legal order require an emergency consciousness drive. Nationwide rollout. A national civic literacy program through radio, TV, mobile classrooms, and community halls. Produce materials in all local languages explaining custodianship, economic rights, land access, and democratic accountability. Organize people, schools, and village dialogues, where elders, youth, activists, and experts share and learn together. Mobilize a volunteer corps of mind builders, trained facilitators, deployed to every ward. 4. Reforming higher education, liberation over certification. Universities must stop being factories for producing elite professionals and become laboratories of nation building. Reform strategy. Create new faculties, custodianship law, decolonial economics, community innovation, and ecological engineering. Make all public university education free, funded by the wealth generated from nationalized resources. Encourage research and innovation that directly supports local economies, sustainable agriculture, alternative energy, and indigenous medicine. Include students and communities in governing university priorities and curriculum design. 5. Youth as agents of renewal. The youth must be placed at the center of transformation, not the periphery. Urgent actions. Launch the Youth for Custodianship program, a national youth service where participants work on land rehabilitation, cooperative farming, tech labs, and civic education. Provide monthly stipends, mentorship, and pathways to permanent work or enterprise. Equip youth with digital skills, engineering basics, construction, and entrepreneurship, all linked to the new strategic economy. Create a national youth parliament, constitutionally recognized, with decision making influence on policies affecting the youth. 6. Media, arts, and culture in the battle for consciousness. The media shapes how people think, feel, and act. Under custodianship, culture becomes a tool for truth, healing, and resistance. Strategies. Create public interest media hubs to produce documentaries, short films, podcasts, and news in local languages about the transformation. Fund a creative rebirth fund to support musicians, poets, visual artists, and performers who promote dignity, truth, and custodianship values. Use TV and radio for mass storytelling, especially about land, economy, memory, and freedom. Build cultural centers in townships and rural areas that house libraries, theaters, digital labs, and art studios. 7. Restoring indigenous wisdom and memory. No nation can be free if it forgets where it came from. Revival plans. Archive and teach indigenous governance models, justice systems, spiritual practices, architecture, farming, and conflict resolution. Recognize elders and traditional knowledge holders as professors and lecturers. Translate sacred texts, oral histories, and ancestral science into modern curricula. Incorporate ritual, dance, language, and totemic philosophy into mainstream education. Conclusion of Chapter 16. True transformation is not built on concrete, policies, or slogans. It is built on consciousness. If the people can read their world, they will rewrite it. Education under the custodianship republic becomes a national fire, spreading knowledge, vision, and the will. A people who know who they are and why they exist cannot be defeated. Chapter 17. Strategic Alliances and Foreign Policy in a Custodianship Republic. The shift toward custodianship over land and strategic sectors is not only a domestic affair, it represents a radical stance in global geopolitics and economic governance. In a world dominated by multinational corporations, foreign investors, and debt driven diplomacy, asserting national sovereignty through public custodianship is both revolutionary and risky. This chapter outlines how a custodianship republic can build strategic alliances, resist isolation, and project a new vision of international solidarity. 1. From dependence to self determination. Post colonial African states have often been trapped in cycles of economic dependency, reliant on aid, loans, and exploitative trade. Strategic shift. End dependence on foreign capital to develop strategic sectors. Use domestically generated wealth from minerals, land, energy to invest in people. Reject the logic of investment attraction that trades sovereignty for capital. Assert the right to control natural resources and define development on our own terms. 2. A foreign policy of non aligned radicalism. The custodianship republic must follow a foreign policy that is non aligned, pan African, and grassroots driven. Core pillars. Defend the principle that people's needs come before global markets. Do not align uncritically with Western or Eastern power blocs. Instead, build solidarity with movements and states advancing justice, land reform, and economic democracy. Elevate citizen diplomacy. Give organized people, farmers, youth, women, unions, indigenous groups, a seat at the foreign policy table. Adopt a policy of active neutrality in global conflicts, focusing instead on peace building, trade justice, and ecological cooperation. 3. Redefining trade. Free trade has mostly benefited large corporations, not people, and we must now replace it with equitable, mutually beneficial trade systems. Action points. Prioritize intra African trade, especially in food, medicine, tech, and infrastructure tools. Renegotiate or exit from trade deals, for example, WTO clauses, AGOA, that undermine state custodianship. Propose a pan African trade accord based on mutual aid, public ownership, and food/resource sovereignty. Promote local currency trade with past dollar dependency. 4. Rejecting neo-colonial financial institutions. The IMF, World Bank, and similar institutions have long pushed austerity and privatization in exchange for loans, policies that devastate the poor. Immediate measures. Declare no new IMF or World Bank structural adjustment agreements. Audit and publicly disclose all foreign debt. Refuse to pay illegitimate colonial or odious debts. Join or help create a global South People's Bank, focused on sustainability, not profit. Explore alternative financing, diaspora bonds, public development funds, and sovereign wealth funds from natural resources. 5. Pan Africanism as a strategic priority. Africa remains rich in resources but poor in unity. The custodianship republic must lead efforts toward continental integration. Strategic directions. Host an annual Pan African Custodianship Summit, bringing together governments, movements, and scholars. Support African countries working to nationalize or re-custodian their strategic sectors. Invest in regional public goods, railways, energy grids, food reserves, and technology hubs owned collectively. Push for a Pan African parliament with real decision making power on economic justice and environmental protection. 6. International Solidarity Networks. We are not alone. Across the world, communities and movements are rising against exploitation, inequality, and ecological destruction. Global alliances to pursue. Join forces with landless workers' movements, for example, Brazil's MST, indigenous sovereignty campaigns, North America, and ecological movements, Europe, Asia. Collaborate with Global South scholars, lawyers, and activists to build legal and intellectual backing for custodianship. Encourage solidarity boycotts, information campaigns, and international legal challenges to any attempt to sanction or isolate the Republic. 7. A new vision of democracy. a new vision of diplomacy. Diplomacy is not just for presidents and ministers. It must include communities, workers, and everyday citizens. Innovations. Create people's embassies in key global cities, spaces to promote cultural understanding, cooperative businesses, and political education. Train a new generation of custodianship diplomats grounded in Pan African ethics and people first economics. Use diplomacy to promote ethical trade, debt justice, environmental treaties, and digital sovereignty. Conclusion of Chapter 17. Custodianship Republic stands not against the world, but with those building a new world, one where land is sacred, people come before profit, and sovereignty is rooted in justice. Through solidarity, strategy, and a fearless foreign policy, we declare another world is not only possible, it is necessary. In addition, we are ready to lead the way. Done with 17. Excuse me, everyone. Still getting over the cold just a little bit, and so every once in a while things back up just a little bit. So I apologize, but gotta keep myself healthy so I can keep on reading for y'all. And so we dive into our next chapter. Chapter 18, Restitution and Healing, Building a Nation Whole Again. The wounds of dispossession, apartheid, and centuries of colonialism are not healed through silence or time. They are healed through truth, justice, and restoration. As we embark on a new path of state custodianship, it is imperative that we do not merely reform systems, but restore dignity, repair broken communities, and rebuild a shared national soul. This chapter presents how restitution and healing must become central pillars of our new custodianship society. 1. Restitution beyond compensation. Restitution is not charity, it is a moral and historical obligation to correct past and ongoing injustices. Key dimensions of restitution: land redistribution as the first form of justice, not based on market value, but on the principle of rightful return. Restore access to ancestral lands, grave sites, sacred areas, and heritage zones. Offer land use rights, cooperative ownership, and long-term security of tenure to displaced and landless communities. Establish a restitution tribunal to fast-track unresolved land claims with clear timelines and support systems. 2. Healing the psychological scars of dispossession. The loss of land, culture, and power created more than poverty. It created a spiritual and psychological void. Healing mechanisms. Community led truth circles where stories of loss, survival, and resistance can be told and heard. Cultural revival programs, teaching language, rituals, indigenous knowledge, and traditional practices. Government sponsored mental wellness campaigns, trauma therapy access, and holistic healing centers in rural and township areas. Reconnect youth with land through agrarian education, ancestral teachings, and spiritual land pilgrimages. 3. Restorative justice for economic crimes. The apartheid and colonial economy was built on theft of minerals, labor, and lives. Justice demands reckoning and accountability. Restorative actions. Create a Truth and Economic Justice Commission to expose how specific corporations, families, and political networks benefited from oppression. Design reparations mechanisms funded by those who profited through taxes, contributions to public funds, or direct land return. Involve churches, mining houses, banks, and universities in moral reparations, including education, housing, and memorial projects. Launch a national archive of economic injustice, preserving evidence, testimonies, and legal frameworks for future generations. Restitution for workers in dispossessed communities. The working class, especially mine workers, farm laborers, and domestic workers, formed the backbone of the economy but reaped the least. Immediate programs: establish a workers' restitution fund built from strategic sector revenues to provide pensions, health care, and reparations to elderly and injured workers. Grant free land or housing plots to retired workers from mines, farms, and state owned industries. Introduce community profit sharing models in industries like mining and farming to reverse historical exploitation. Ensure priority and access to education, training, and enterprise finance for children of the historically dispossessed. 5. Justice for marginalized groups. Restitution must include those who suffered intersectional oppression: women, LGBTQ plus individuals, disabled persons, and ethnic minorities. Inclusion strategies: recognize patriarchal land laws that excluded women, reform them in both customary and statutory systems. Allocate land and enterprise space specifically to women led and queer led cooperatives. Ensure persons with disabilities are included in land access, job creation, and state support systems. Develop customized healing and justice programs with grassroots organizations representing marginalized voices. 6. Memorialization and national memory. We must remember so that we do not repeat. Memorialization is a form of restitution. It honors those who fought, those who died, and those who were erased. Legacy building actions: build monuments and living museums on expropriated land to tell the true stories of resistance, land struggles, and hope. Rename roads, towns, and landmarks with names that reflect Indigenous heroes, freedom fighters, and historical truth. Establish annual days of remembrance and restoration tied to land and labor history. Fund art, theater, literature, and film projects that express the pain and vision of a people reclaiming their soul. 7. Restitution as a generational promise. Restitution is not only about today's poor, it is a sacred promise to unborn generations that justice will define their inheritance. Long term policies: enshrine restitution principles in the new Constitution of the Custodianship Republic. Develop an intergenerational trust fund to protect land, water, and ecological wealth for future citizens. Educate children from an early age about restoration, justice, and history, preparing them to carry the torch. Conclusion of Chapter 18. Without restitution, there is no peace. Without healing, there is no future. The Custodianship Republic is not a new government. It is the rebirth of a broken nation. Through truth, through dignity, through deep and democratic repair, we shall rise not only as a people who survived, but as a people who overcame, reclaimed, and as resto. Scusi. And we continue to move on. Remember, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or would like to add anything, please feel free to use the chats in whatever platform you do happen to be on. I would recommend, though, if you want to speak with other people, check out the YouTube channel. And now, Chapter 19: Constitutional Transformation: Designing the Legal Framework for Custodianship. The dream of state custodianship over land and strategic sectors cannot be fulfilled without radical constitutional transformation. A constitution is more than just a legal document. It is the moral, political, and philosophical foundation of a nation. If the law reflects the will of the people, it becomes to justice. In this chapter, we explore how to rewrite the social contract to reflect the values of equality, dignity, and democratic custodianship. 1. The limitations of the current Constitution. While hailed globally for its progressiveness, South Africa's 1996 constitution reflects a compromise with capital and apartheid power structures. Critical limitations. Section 25, Property Clause, protects private property rights, including land obtained through colonial theft. The notion of willing buyer, willing seller has delayed or blocked true land reform. Key sectors minerals, water, banking, telecommunications are still governed by market driven legal frameworks. The Constitution does not fully enshrine economic equality as a fundamental human right. 2. A People's Constitution for the Custodianship Republic. The people must be the authors of a new constitution, not politicians, not consultants, but communities, movements, scholars, workers, and youth. Foundational principles. Land and strategic sectors belong to the nation, with the state acting as custodian on behalf of present and future generations. Economic democracy is a right, not a dream, meaning equal access to resources, opportunities, and decision making. The commons, water, air, soil, knowledge, are to be protected from privatization and corporate control. Power must be radically decentralized, with local communities controlling development paths and resources. 3. A democratic, participatory constitutional process. To avoid another elite transition, the process of constitutional change must be bottom up, transparent, and mass driven. Steps in the process. National People's Assemblies across all provinces to gather mandates, demands, and visions from the ground. Establish a constitutional forum made up of elected delegates from all sectors youth, women, unions, traditional leaders, informal traders, faith groups. Host a People's Constitutional Convention to draft the new document. Ratified through a nationwide referendum, ensuring that every citizen has a voice. 4. Key constitutional innovations for the new era. The Custodianship Republic's Constitution must not merely copy existing systems, it must innovate to meet 21st century realities. Proposed legal innovations. Custodianship Clause. All land, water, and natural resources are under public custodianship for the benefit of all citizens. Right to productive land. Every citizen is entitled to access land for housing, farming, or cooperative production. Right to economic participation. The state must actively ensure full participation in the economy by historically excluded groups. Ecological mandate. The state has a duty to protect biodiversity and climate sustainability over profit. Tech and knowledge sovereignty. Data, algorithms, and intellectual property developed from public resources are national assets. 5. Transforming the judiciary and legal institutions. A constitution is only as powerful as the system that interprets and enforces it. The judiciary must be democratized, decolonized, and aligned with custodianship values. Reforms needed. Establish people's courts for land, labor, and social justice matters, rooted in community based restorative justice. Appoint judges through democratic processes involving public participation, not just legal elites. Mandate customary and indigenous law to be treated equally and with respect in national legal frameworks. Ensure that law schools and bar associations decolonize their curricula, prioritizing social justice law and ethics. 6. Securing rights without commodification. In the current system, many rights are only real if you can afford them. The new Constitution must guarantee rights without market barriers. Implementation strategies. Enshrine universal basic services, housing, water, healthcare, education, as free, unconditional public goods. Criminalize the commodification of essential needs, including private land speculation, utility privatization, and profiteering in education. Institutionalize cooperative and commons based ownership as legitimate economic models protected under law. 7. Constitutional protection for future generations. We must build a society where future generations are stakeholders, where the long term is enshrined in short term innovative in addition. Appoint a commissioner for future tasked with reviewing laws and projects that may harm coming generations. Require environmental and intergenerational impact assessments for all major developments. Mandate that all national development plans align with sustainability, equity, and custodianship principles. Conclusion of Chapter 19. This is not just about changing laws, it is about redefining the soul of the nation. A constitution for the custodianship republic must center the voices of the people, the wisdom of the land, and the hope of future generations. It must declare to the world that justice is no longer negotiable. It is law. Chapter 20. Digital Sovereignty and the Tech Commons. As the world hurtles into the fourth industrial revolution, nations without control over their data, digital infrastructure, and technological ecosystems risk becoming digital colonies. Just as minerals were stolen from African soil, so too is African data being used and monetized by foreign tech giants. In a custodianship republic, digital sovereignty and technological justice are non negotiable. This chapter lays out a framework to reclaim and democratize the digital realm as a strategic public asset for development, empowerment, and liberation. 1. What is digital sovereignty? Digital sovereignty is the right and ability of a nation and its people to control their data, including personal, commercial, and biometric data, build and manage their digital infrastructure, such as servers, networks, and cloud systems, develop and govern technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain, in alignment with ethical, cultural, and national values. In essence, it is the right to decide how technology serves society, not how society serves profit driven algorithms. 2. The problem of digital colonialism currently. Africa generates massive volumes of data, yet the majority of servers are hosted outside the continent. Major tech platforms, Google, Facebook, Amazon, extract African user data, but reinvest little in infrastructure or education. Surveillance technologies are imported from authoritarian regimes, violating citizens' privacy and autonomy. Local innovation, patents, software, and lack of access to funding platforms. This is neocolonialism via fiber optic cable, and it must be stopped. 3. A state custodianship model for tech infrastructure. As with land and minerals, digital infrastructure must be placed under public custodianship. This doesn't mean state ownership of all software, it means public control over strategic platforms and digital utilities. Key priorities: create a national digital infrastructure authority to manage data centers, cloud storage, cybersecurity, and broadband rollout. Build state owned Internet Exchange Points, IXPs, to reduce dependency on foreign networks and reduce costs. Develop a public national data cloud for secure storage and management of citizen, institutional, and enterprise data. Promote free or subsidized broadband access, particularly for schools, rural areas, and community centers. 4. The people's data is a national resource. Just like minerals or water, data has value and power, and it must be treated as a national asset under custodianship. Data policy reforms. Declare citizen and consumer data a non transferable national asset with strict consent and sovereignty laws. Tax or charge rent to global tech companies operating in South Africa using local data. Require mandatory data localization. All data collected within the country must be stored locally. Establish community data trusts, giving local cooperatives control over how agricultural, health, and educational data is used. 5. Digital public goods and the tech commons. A just digital future requires open, shared, and democratic access to essential technologies. Commons based strategies fund and support open source platforms in education, healthcare, agriculture, and finance. Build a national open AI lab, accessible to universities, cooperatives, and social movements. Launch a digital public goods fund to develop apps, algorithms, and platforms for the public good, not for private profit. Introduce a people's patent repository where innovations from rural investors, students, and community engineers are protected and supported. 6. Digital education and inclusion. Without skills, access, and confidence, millions of people are digitally excluded and economically left behind. Bridging the divide. Make digital literacy and coding compulsory in all public schools by 2027. Provide free tablets and offline learning systems in remote, underserved communities. Partner with local tech startups to offer youth training in AI, robotics, blockchain, and cybersecurity. Ensure tech education for elders, women in rural areas, and informal workers so that no one is left behind. 7. Artificial intelligence for the people. AI should not replace people, it should empower them. Ethical AI and Custodianship Society. Develop national ethical guidelines for AI and automation aligned with Ubuntu and human dignity. Promote community driven AI tools for farming, health diagnostics, language translation, and job matching. Prohibit the use of AI in automated surveillance, racial profiling, and exploitative labor platforms. Incentivize tech for good startups, particularly those focused on solving grassroots problems. 8. Cybersecurity and digital rights. A custodianship republic must protect its citizens in both the physical and digital domains. Protective measures. Establish a digital rights charter guaranteeing freedom from surveillance, data abuse, and algorithmic discrimination. Train digital ombudsmen and public defenders to support citizens whose rights are violated online. Create a cyber peace and defense force, a sovereign ethical body for digital defense without militarization. Ban foreign owned spyware and military tech used for internal repression. Conclusion of Chapter 20. As we enter the age of information, our liberation must follow. The fiber optic cable is the new railroad. The algorithm is the new colonizer. But within every chip lies the power to build a society where technology serves the people, not profits. Through digital sovereignty and the creation of a tech commons, the custodianship republic becomes not just a land of justice, but a future of freedom. Foot itches. It's the little things that you guys don't see normally behind someone making that audiobook for you. The itches, the drinking the tea, all those fun things. You know, that is just the way it is. All right. Are we ready? Let us hit Chapter 21. International Solidarity and the New Global South Movement. In an era dominated by unequal globalization, debt traps, and corporate, no nation can liberate itself in isolation. The Greenship Republic must not only transform its own systems, but actively participate in building a new global South movement. A collective of states, peoples, and movements seeking a fair, multipolar, post capitalist world order. This chapter outlines the foreign policy, international alliances, and solidarity strategies necessary for defending and expanding the custodianship agenda on the world stage. 1. Rebuilding the spirit of Bandung. In 1905, leaders from Africa and Asia met in Bandung to declare a united front against and Western domination. Today, that spirit must be reborn. Key actions: call for a new Bandung type summit among progressive global South nations, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Caribbean. Draft a declaration of South sovereignty and solidarity to defend against debt colonialism, resource plunder, and IMF World Bank conditionality. Create a permanent global South Assembly, separate from the UN system, to coordinate joint actions on climate, trade, and development. 2. Exit the neo-colonial financial order. The IMF, World Bank, and credit rating agencies operate as enforcers of global capitalism, demanding austerity, privatization, and debt repayment at the expense of sovereignty and public welfare. Policy directions: initiate a full audit of South Africa's national debt to determine odious and illegitimate loans, such that violate human rights and constitutional economic obligations. Lead in creating a global South Development Bank, a people first alternative to the IMF World Bank. Campaign for a new international reserve currency that reduces dependency on the US dollar. 3. Strategic alliances beyond the West. While maintaining diplomatic relations with all, the custodianship republic should prioritize partnerships based on equity, technology transfer, and mutual development, not profit and domination. Alliances to build. Deepen ties with BRICS nations, particularly in creating alternative payment systems and trade agreements. Strengthen cooperation with ALBA, Latin America, ASEAN, Asia, and AU, African Union, on shared development goals. Pursue bilateral tech transfer and land reform knowledge exchanges with countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia, and Rwanda. Encourage joint peacekeeping and anti coup protocols to defend democratic governments against foreign sponsored destabilization. 4. Africa must lead itself. Africa is not a charity case. It is a continent of potential, rich in youth, culture, minerals, and untapped markets. But only a united, decolonized, and sovereign Africa can realize that future. Africa centric priorities: accelerate the building of the African Trade Area, AFCFTA, with pro poor industrial policies and public oversight. Support a Pan African Parliament with teeth, capable of holding multinational corporations and foreign militaries accountable. Push for continental food sovereignty, ending dependence on GMO seeds and foreign agrogiants. Initiate a continental land registry and minerals database for full transparency and equitable management of national wealth. Natural wealth. 5. A foreign policy of the people. Foreign policy must not be the exclusive domain of elites. In a custodianship system, the people shape the country's international relationships through democratic processes. Democratic foreign policy measures. Establish a People's Foreign Affairs Council with elected representatives from trade unions, student bodies, rural cooperatives, and faith organizations. Subject major foreign treaties to public consultation or referendum. Mandate public transparency of foreign aid, military cooperation, and trade deals. Encourage diaspora participation in reshaping the country's global mission and resource strategies. 6. Global advocacy for custodianship governance. The world is hungry for a new model of governance. The custodianship republic must export ideas, not control, and become a lighthouse of post capitalist democracy. Global Advocacy Plan. Launch an Institute for Decolonial Governance and Custodianship Studies, partnering with universities and social movements globally. offer technical and political training to other movements pursuing land reform, public control of resources, and economic democracy. Lead campaigns at international forums, COP, UNHRC, WTO, for climate reparations, debt cancellation, and tech justice. Sponsor an annual global custodianship forum for leaders, activists, and academics from across the world to co create new pathways of justice and equality. Conclusion of Chapter 21. The custodianship republic cannot afford neutrality in an unjust world. Our survival depends on our solidarity. By leading the new Global South movement, South Africa can help awaken a planetary majority to reclaim their land, labor, and lives from the grip of profit. From Cape to Cairo, Caracas to Calcutta, a new era of cooperation, dignity, and justice can be born, one where the people of the world become custodians of their shared future. Gee, still no comments from anybody. That's okay. It just means we keep reading. Gotta love it. All right, let's move it along. Chapter 22. Building a Culture of Service, Ubuntu, and Accountability. To serve the people with integrity is not charity, it is a duty. To uplift the community is not an option, it is Ubuntu. For the custodianship republic to succeed, it must rest on a moral foundation as strong as its policies. No economic reform, land expropriation, or national strategy will endure if the culture of greediness, corruption, elitism, and individualism continues to dominate public service and governance. This chapter details how to rebuild the national ethic of Ubuntu, public integrity, participatory ethics, and moral custodianship, creating a citizenry and leadership committed to serving the common good. 1. Ubuntu as a national ethic of governance. Ubuntu, I am because we are, must be more than a slogan. It must become the official cultural compass guiding every state decision, policy, and public action. Action steps. Declare Ubuntu as a constitutional principle of public life and leadership conduct. Embed Ubuntu philosophy in the education system, public media, government service training, and legal interpretation. Establish Ubuntu civic hubs in each province, spaces for citizen education, cultural expression, conflict resolution, and grassroots planning. 2. Custodians, not politicians. Redefining public leadership. Leadership in the custodial republic is not a privilege or career. It is a temporary mandate of service to the people. New Governance Code. Replace the title of politician with custodian in all levels of public office. Require oaths of ethical custodianship, not party loyalty. Implement annual public reviews of custodian performance through citizen assemblies. Create community based recall mechanisms for leaders who breach public trust or ethics. 3. Zero tolerance for corruption, capture, and elitism. South Africa's post 1994 corruption has poisoned public faith. A custodianship system must treat corruption as a crime against the people's dignity, future generation, and not just an economic issue. Anti Corruption Plan. Establish an Independent Custodianship Integrity Commission, ICIC, to vet public servants and investigate all state linked enrichment. Enforce lifetime bans from public service for those convicted of corruption or state capture. Impose asset transparency laws. All custodians must declare finances, business interests, and foreign connections. End tenderpreneurship and state outsourcing for critical services. Prioritize public owned delivery systems. 4. National service and youth civic duty. To cultivate generational pride and shared identity, every young citizen should contribute to building the nation beyond individual gain. Youth Ubuntu Service Plan. Introduce a 2-year national Ubuntu service program for youth aged 18 to 35 in areas like education, health, agriculture, tech, and rural development. Offer tertiary education credits and startup grants as incentives for completion. Make Ubuntu service a pathway into civil service, innovation grants, or cooperative leadership. Pair youth with elder mentors, reviving intergenerational wisdom transmission. 5. Transparent, participatory governance. Accountability is not just legal, it is cultural. The people must see, shape, and monitor how power is exercised in their name. Mechanisms for people powered accountability. Launch a digital people's budget portal. Every citizen can track national and local budget allocations, tenders, and expenditures. Institutionalize local people's councils, LPCs, where ward citizens evaluate performance of custodians, approve development priorities, and recommend actions. Mandate that every major decision, from land reallocation to service projects, include community verification forums. Train and deploy community integrity officers in every municipality to educate citizens on rights, anti corruption processes, and whistleblower protections. 6. Media, arts, and faith in the service of values. Culture is a battlefield. Ubuntu and custodianship values must saturate national storytelling, entertainment, and public consciousness. Cultural upliftment strategy. Launch a national Ubuntu platform for values based content, youth programs, and indigenous languages. Support artists, writers, and filmmakers who reflect themes of service, solidarity, decolonialization, and community. Fund faith based and cultural leaders' civic roles in promoting morality, dignity, and anti greed ethics. Protect whistleblowers, investigate journalists, and public educators as heroes of democratic custodianship. 7. The people as the highest office. In the custodianship republic, the final authority is not parliament or presidency, it is the people. Every institution, program, and law must pass the test of public will and public interest. Constitutional safeguards. Require all long term policies, land, water, education, to include a People's Oversight Charter. Embed community veto rights in land use decisions, mining approvals, and large scale economic interventions. Codify the doctrine of popular sovereignty in national governance. No law, contract, or policy can override the will of the people. Final thoughts. The custodianship republic is more than a structure, it is a soul. Without a deep shift in cultural values, even the best political programs will rot from within. Ubuntu is not an ideal from the past. It is the most powerful leadership model for the future. By raising a new generation of custodians, leaders who serve, citizens who co govern, and institutions rooted in moral responsibility, South Africa can become not only a liberated land, but also a light to all nations seeking justice and dignity. All right, and we continue on. Part 4. The Ubuntu Tech Ed Model. Reimagining education for a human centered and AI powered future. Vision. To cultivate self directed, ethically grounded, technologically fluent African innovators who are prepared for a rapidly evolving world from the four walls of a classroom. Core principles. 1. Lifelong modular learning. Education is no longer tied to age or time in school. Learners advance by mastery and interest, not by age or grade. Micro credentials, digital badges, and competency portfolios replace final exam dependency. From ages 7 to 70, individuals build their own learning paths through a hybrid system. 2. Beyond the classroom, The world is a campus. Nature, homes, local businesses, digital labs, and communities become decentralized learning nodes. Schools are repurposed as learning innovation hubs, spaces for collaboration, experimentation, and mentorship. Each learner spends only 30% of time in physical institutions. The rest is for field research, virtual labs, apprenticeships, and self led projects. 3. Ubuntu centric curriculum replaces colonial syllabi with Afrocentric values, history, indigenous knowledge, and spiritual intelligence. Encourages collective intelligence, ethics, and cultural pride. Interweaves Ubuntu philosophy with tech, science, and business education. 4. Technology as a learning partner. AI tutors, augmented reality, and adaptive platforms help personalize learning. Learners use voice to text, AI assistants, 3D printing, coding games, and simulation labs to solve real problems. Blockchain certification systems track skills earned over time. 2. Structure of the Ubuntu Tech Ed model. Phase 1. Early exploration, ages 5 to 12. Objective: discover curiosity, digital tools, community identity, and environmental stewardship. Project based learning, how to build a garden, telling our village's story with VR, weekly community walks, local artisan mentorships. Digital tools, storytelling apps, drawing tablets, logic based games. Phase 2. Maker and Inventor phase, ages 13 to 18. Objective: build real world skills, engage in research, prototype innovation. 40% learning time in digital labs, making spaces, farms, clinics, or startups. Design challenges: build an AI weather bot, make a water purifier using local materials. Apprenticeships with artisans, engineers, coders, healers. Curriculum streams: humanity and ethics, AI and robotics, ecological regeneration, entrepreneurship and digital commerce. Phase 3. Custodianship track, ages 19 to 25 plus. Objective: serve, earn, innovate, and grow in chosen fields while continuing flexible education. Choose tracks: public service, research and innovation, green economy, digital trade, community healing. Work study model: earn stipends while learning in cooperative projects. All learning recorded in AI driven lifelong learning passports. Receive open credentials instead of rigid university degrees. 3. Key components: AI powered learning systems. Smart learning agents like local created algorithm adapt materials to local language, ability level, and interest. AI assesses thinking, creativity, collaboration, not just memorization. VR headsets offer interactive history lessons, medical simulations, or space science labs. Local knowledge in global tech integrates indigenous problem solving systems, for example, conflict resolution, herbal medicine, with modern science inquiry. Learners explore: how did our ancestors engineer water systems, then compare with smart irrigation. Community as curriculum. Every village or town becomes a learning hub. Monthly themes like fix our electricity grid or recode our education system. Elders, professionals, and artisans are co-educators. Decentralized digital education wallet. A learning wallet on each child's device stores credits, badges, feedback, ideas. Funded by the state, the wallet allows free access to open source courses, research tools, virtual internships, mentorship platforms. 4. Implementation strategy. 1. Transition existing schools. Phase out rigid classroom schedules. Equip with solar power, internet, AR/VR labs, maker kits. Train teachers as learning guides, not content deliverers. Because rigid colonial era systems are not preparing students for today's economy, kids need to collaborate, think critically, use tech, and innovate, not just memorize facts. 2. Deploy community tech hubs. Each township or rural ward gets a digital Ubuntu learning center run by youth and elders, equipped with AI devices, coding kits, biology labs, media production gear. 3. Train a new class of educators. Develop the Ubuntu Futurist Educator Academy. Teachers become ethical AI mentors, ecological restoration guides, interdisciplinary innovators. 4. Public private ecosystem. Government plus SMMEs plus tech giants plus cooperatives co fund education innovation zones. Google, MTN, Huawei, and African universities co develop the digital learning stack. 5. Outcomes and benefits. Learners graduate with portfolios, startups, projects, not just certificates. No one finishes school. They keep learning throughout life. Villages produce engineers, healers, and inventors from within. Education ends poverty by aligning passion, purpose, and practical skills. Inclusion through personalized learning, embracing neurodiversity and disability. In the traditional classroom model, learners with disabilities or neurodiverse conditions, such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, or sensory impairments, are often marginalized, misunderstood, or forced to adapt to rigid systems that were never designed for them. The new equation legacy by advocating for a flexible, personalized, and tech enhanced learning model that meets students where they are, not where the system expects them to be. AI and adaptive learning technologies offer powerful tools for inclusion. Smart systems can adjust content delivery, pacing, and interaction style to suit each learner's cognitive and emotional profile. A child with dyslexia, for example, can receive audio based instructions and visual pattern tools. A nonverbal learner can communicate through AI powered speech generation or symbol boards. For learners on the autism spectrum, environments can be digitally adapted to reduce sensory overload, while still promoting social emotional development through gamified engagement and real time emotional feedback systems. But beyond tools, the new equation promotes a philosophical shift to recognize difference not as a deficit, but as a dimension of human intelligence. Neurodiverse learners are not problems to be fixed. They are powerful contributors with unique ways of seeing and solving. By designing inclusive learning systems from the ground up, Africa can lead the world in creating educational models that are not only equitable, but also radically empowering. Closing thought. Education must liberate, not domesticate. The Ubuntu Tech Ed model ensures that every South African child learns how to think, create, heal, collaborate, and adapt, not merely how to pass exams. The layout of this book messes me up sometimes because it's got part fives, part V, one, two, so on and so forth as we go through. So it's a little bit different when you read the book in front of you because you can see it as it goes through. I'm trying to dictate it out as we go through, but hopefully I'm not losing any of you guys as we do go through it. All right, next section. Part 5. The New Social Contract. A step by step guide to implementing national basic income in South Africa. Context. Why basic income now? In the old economy, human labor was the engine of growth. You worked, you got paid, consumed, paid taxes, and the system continued recycled. But in the age of automation and AI, we're entering a post job society. Machines, software, and algorithms now perform many human tasks. There will never be enough traditional jobs for all. The 8 to 5 model is outdated, restrictive, and unequal. Poverty is not due to laziness, but it is due to lack of access to equal share of opportunities. Basic income, BI, is not a handout. It is an investment in human dignity, creativity, and freedom to dream. What is national basic income? Basic income is a monthly, unconditional cash payment given to all citizens. It is not based on employment, disability, or poverty status. It is permanent, predictable, and universal. Its purpose is to provide a foundation for people to live, learn, heal, and create. Example: every South African citizen above 18 receives 3,500 Rand per month directly into their digital wallet with no paperwork or conditions. Step by step implementation plan. Step 1: define the national mandate, policy, and legal framework. Action: pass a Basic Income Act in Parliament. Enshrine the right to a dignified life in the Constitution. Declare basic income a non negotiable human right, like water or education. Tasks: national referendum to confirm public support. Establish a National Basic Income Commission, NBIC, to oversee design, ethics, distribution, and innovation. Step 2: develop a digital payment ecosystem. Action: build a national digital wallet system, NDWS, tied to SAID numbers and biometrics. Tools like Postbank, SASSA infrastructure, and mobile money platforms. Tasks: every citizen gets a secure, mobile accessible wallet. People can cash out, spend digitally, or invest their income. Partnerships with banks, spaza shops, and telecoms for cash access and payment acceptance. Step 3: start with a targeted pilot. Action: launch basic income in 3 provinces or districts with high unemployment and poverty. Tasks: pay R 3,500 per month to 1 million citizens. Monitor spending, impact on health, education, crime, and entrepreneurship. Document lessons and public reactions. Step 4: scale in phases. Action: gradually increase coverage over 24 months. Year 1: all unemployed adults. Year 2: all working age adults. Year 3: all citizens 18 plus. Tasks: synchronize with Home Affairs to verify identities. Use blockchain to prevent fraud. Open public dashboards showing how basic income is working. Step 5: redesign tax and revenue system to fund it. Funding sources. 1: wealth tax on the ultra rich. Example: assets over R 50 million. 2: automation tax. Companies that replace workers with machines pay extra levies. 3: sovereign tech fund. State owns shares in AI, mining, and green energy companies. 4: state digital currency profits. Allow SARB to create crypto backed revenue. 5: green bonds and carbon credit exports. Monetize environmental projects. 6: end bloated bureaucracy and cut redundant welfare grants. Tasks: replace 20 plus fragmented grants, child, disability, old age, with one unified basic income. Streamline government payrolls. Introduce progressive consumption taxes on luxury goods, not essentials. Step 6: educate the nation on post job life. Action: launch a national campaign. You are not your job, you are your purpose. Teach citizens that basic income gives time to study or start a business, space to volunteer, parent, or care for elders, freedom to heal from trauma or depression, capacity to explore one's talent and soul. Step 7: build an entrepreneurship ecosystem around. Action: Create community enterprise incubators in every township and village. Offer business mentorship, seed capital matched by basic income, market access and legal help. Tasks connect BI recipients with AI tools to build digital shops, art, music, film, local renewable grids. Step 8 Monitor, evaluate, improve. Action The NBIC reports quarterly to Parliament and the public. Key focus hunger rates, mental health improvements, reduction in crime, startup growth, school attendance, community volunteerism. Clarity What basic income is not. It is not socialism or communism. It is freedom. It does not make people lazy. Studies show it increases creativity, health, and ambition. It is not welfare. It is dividends from the wealth of the nation. Inclusion of the informal economy. Offline digital wallets for all. One of the greatest challenges in implementing a national basic income in Africa is ensuring financial access for the millions of people who operate outside the formal banking system. In rural villages, informal settlements, and even busy urban streets, countless people trade daily without bank accounts, smartphones, or formal IDs, but they are the backbone of local economies. To create a truly inclusive and just basic income model, the new equation proposes the use of offline capable digital wallets. These wallets can be linked to biometric identity systems or USSD mobile codes, enabling access through even the simplest feature phones. No internet connection required. Funds can be stored securely and used to make payments or receive transfers via Bluetooth, QR codes, or local community kiosks that act as access points. For informal traders, this system creates a way to receive and make payments without being forced into a formal bank. Traders at shops, taxi ranks, or roadside markets can transact directly with customers using offline peer to peer wallet functions, helping to formalize the value of their work without losing the flexibility of their trade. The new equation believes financial inclusion is a right, not a privilege. By designing for those on the margins, informal workers, rural dwellers, and the digitally disconnected, this new social contract ensures that no one is left behind. The goal is not only to distribute income, but to activate participation in a new economy that recognizes everyone's contribution to the nation's well being. Real transformation. What basic income enables. A poet can finally write. A mother can raise her child in peace. A youth can build an app instead of begging for jobs. A Sangoma can heal without charging R1000 to survive. A villager can regenerate the soil instead of migrating to cities. Jobs are a colonial invention to measure obedience. Basic income is a sovereign investment to unlock genius. And next. Part 6 Attachment. A new prison model for South Africa in the age of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Title Smart Prisons for a Smart Nation Reimagining Rehabilitation in the 4IR Era. Background South African prisons were built on old systems punishment, isolation, and hard labor. But in the age of artificial intelligence, robotics, and smart technologies, this outdated model only leads to overcrowding, wasted human potential, and high reoffending rates. The Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR, demands a new kind of correctional system, one that restores, educates, and prepares offenders for reintegration in a high tech society. Objective to transform South African prisons from centers of punishment into centers of digital empowerment and rehabilitation, where inmates learn 4IR relevant skills, participate in AI driven education and therapy, contribute meaningfully to society, even while incarcerated. Key concepts of the 4IR prison model 1. Digital education hubs. Every prison will have a tech learning center. Inmates learn coding, AI, cybersecurity, digital marketing, and data literacy. Partnerships with universities and platforms like Coursera, Udisa, and local TVETs. 2. AI assisted rehabilitation. AI will track inmate behavior, learning progress, and emotional well being. Personalize rehab programs using machine learning. Predictive analysis to reduce violence and aid reintegration plans. 3. Smart workshops. Inmates produce digital content, apps, crafts, or even 3D printed goods. Earnings can be split between the inmate's family, victim support, and savings for post relief life. 4. Green technology integration. Prisons powered by solar energy and sustainable farming, vertical gardens, aquaponics. Inmates trained in green tech and eco clean product manufacturing. 5. Virtual family interaction. AI managed video communication tools for regular virtual visits. Strengthens family ties, reducing isolation and emotional breakdowns. 6. Digital identification and blockchain tracking. Each inmate's rehabilitation journey is stored securely on blockchain. Full transparency in progress reports, parole recommendations, and achievements. Benefits of this model: reduces reoffending. Education and meaningful engagement lower crime repetition. Economic contribution. Inmates become digital contributors, not burdens. Safer prisons. AI driven monitoring reduces violence and stress. Nation building. Even behind bars, people are uplifted and included in the digital economy. A surveillance in the smart prison model. While the smart prison model leverages AI and advanced technologies to enhance rehabilitation, ensure safety, and improve the overall prison environment, it is essential to acknowledge the ethical concerns that accompany such innovations, especially around surveillance and data privacy. It is crucial to emphasize that all AI systems used in the prison context must be designed with the highest standards of transparency, oversight, and accountability. These technologies should not serve as tools for oppression or violation of privacy, but rather as instruments for rehabilitation, human dignity, and fair treatment. Key principles of ethical AI use in prisons: data ethics and consent. All data collected through AI surveillance, whether for behavior tracking, health monitoring, or security, should be collected with informed consent from incarcerated individuals. Data use should be strictly limited to improving rehabilitation outcomes and ensuring safety, with clear public guidelines on how it is handled and stored. Transparency. The prison system should be fully transparent about how AI is used, what data is being collected, and how it is analyzed. Public access to these protocols should be available to both oversight bodies and the broader public to ensure trust in the system. Oversight and human rights. An independent human rights focused oversight committee must monitor the use of AI within prisons. This committee should be responsible for ensuring that AI systems are never used to perpetuate discrimination, human rights violations, or punitive control over vulnerable populations. Continuous audits of AI systems are necessary to ensure they meet international human rights standards. Focus on rehabilitation, not punishment. The goal of integrating AI into the prison system is to support rehabilitation. AI can personalize learning paths for prisoners, offer vocational training, and assess individual needs to foster positive behavioral change, not just to monitor and punish. Technology should promote reformation, not deterrence. Right to privacy and data protection. As with all data driven systems, protecting the privacy of prisoners is paramount. Strict measures must be in place to prevent data breaches, unauthorized surveillance, or any form of digital abuse. Prisoners should have the right to challenge and question any data or surveillance being used against them. By implementing these principles, the smart prison model can align with the core values of justice, fairness, and human dignity, ensuring that technology works for the rehabilitation and not the exploitation of incarcerated individuals. Prisons of the past focused on walls and punishment. The prisons of the new equation focus on minds and transformation. If we want South Africa to rise, we must rehabilitate our forgotten citizens, not with chains and shame, but with coding, creation, and compassion. This is the prison of tomorrow. This is justice in the 4IR. This is the new equation. A prisoner cannot enter into agreement. Conclusion. If you have journeyed with me to this point, I want to begin by saying thank you. Thank you for opening your heart to these thoughts, for allowing your mind to stretch beyond the familiar, and for giving your time to a humble voice seeking clarity in a chaotic world. Writing the new equation was not just an intellectual exercise, it was a deeply personal act of reflection, healing, and hope. And reading it, I believe, was the same. This book is not perfect, nor is it complete. It is a beginning, a conversation, a call. If it has stirred something in you, whether a question, an idea, or even a quiet discomfort, then it has done what it was meant to do. Because change does not start with answers, it starts with awareness. The world does not need more noise, it needs more truth. It needs thinkers who care, dreamers who act, and ordinary people willing to imagine something better for themselves, for others, and for those still to come. So I invite you now to take this journey beyond these pages. Start where you are. Speak what you believe. Create what you can. Question what you must. And wherever you go, carry this simple idea. The future is not waiting to happen, it is waiting to be made. You are part of the equation. With all my gratitude, Sibusiso Sambo. And, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that is the end of the new equation. I hope you got something out of the reading, one way or the other, and that you enjoyed it through. Thank you so much for coming along to spend some time with me. Of course, I will post all of these up onto the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SirArminius, this evening after I end the live stream. For those of you guys who do celebrate, a very Merry Christmas on Thursday. We are 2 days away as of my current recording. For those of you who celebrate in some other way or don't celebrate at all, I hope you have a fantastic holiday season or a great winter. I may be around on Thursday for some Mech Warrior Online. We'll see what time everybody goes to bed. I think everybody but me is working. Actually, technically, I think I'm working on Friday too, but everybody else works early. So they may all be in bed. I may be free to come stream with you guys. If not, I will be back Saturday with another reading. Until then, once again, happy holidays, fantastic winter, Merry Christmas, and I will see you guys all again really soon. Good night, everybody.